Hello everyone! There are a number of films that precede this one, which focus on the 911, the Boxster and the 928. I will link to these in the description, and you can also click on the pop-out in the top right of the screen. For this film, however, we are moving away from anything Porsche has made with the engine behind the driver and focus on the Porsche 924 and its development through 944 and finish with the 968. Yes, there will be no flat sixes or V8s anywhere in this video, but rather some of the finest four-cylinder engines ever produced, and in the more traditional location on a car that until the Boxster came along was Porsche's most successful car ever. So then, before we look at each model and variant, let's look at the context, and the story starts as early as 1973. As I think a lot of people know, the 924 was to be a joint project with Volkswagen, which conspired to make it a bit of an unloved model. What a lot of people probably don't know, however, is that the 924 wasn't the first model to be conceived across the two companies. And now, I have a special limited time offer for you on Mint Mobile. You can get their unlimited plan, which is normally only $30 a month, for just $15 a month. That's a 50% savings off their already super low price. It only takes 15 minutes to pay as low as $15 a month for your phone plan. It really is that simple. If you've ever thought, why the heck is my wireless bill so darn high? Let me tell you about Mint Mobile, who I'm partnering with for today's video. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network, and they keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? Click the link in my description or scan the QR code if you're interested in the best value in wireless. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Now, back to the video. The 914, its immediate predecessor, was just the same, as at the time, development work for VW was handed to Porsche by contract since Porsche's inception. So you can see there is a lineage from 914 to 924 to 944. In case you were wondering, there was a 934 too, although that's the racing version of the 930 Turbo in 1976 and 1977, and nothing to do with these cars. Having outsold the 911, the 914 came to an end in 1976, and thus there was a need for a replacement, and that's what started in 1973. Project 425, as it was known at the time, was supposed to be VW's flagship sports car, and for Porsche an entry-level model, and the caveat that VW stipulated in their development agreement with Porsche for this car was that it had to be based on an existing VW Audi inline-4 engine. Porsche chose a rear-wheel drive layout and a rear-mounted transaxle for the design to help provide 48-52 front-rear weight distribution. This slight rear weight bias added both traction and brake balance. The 1973 oil crisis caused some change at VW in the environment of legal and regulatory changes around cars at the time, and VW scrapped Project 425 in favour of the Scirocco model. With Porsche still needing an entry-level model, Porsche bought the design back from VW, and whilst they completed it, the 914 ceased production, and Porsche had to relaunch the 912e for 1 year only in the US market in 1976 as a backstop. VW still became the subcontractor for the build of the 924 though, and VW employees put it together for its launch in the south of France in 1975. As ever at the time, with Porsche down on their luck financially, this car was cheap and economical for them to build. The engine and transmission were VW Audi units, with the engine also appearing in several American cars at the time, including the Jeep postal vans, and put out a measly 95 bhp in North American trim. This soon changed in mid-1977 though, and was boosted up to 110 bhp, and European cars unencumbered by emissions equipment and impact bumpers too made a much more respectable 123 bhp. As some consolation, the car only weighed just under 2,400 pounds, but nevertheless it was criticised for its slow acceleration and poor performance. To make matters worse, the exchange rate with the Deutschmark at the time, however, made it an expensive proposition, coming in at the same price as the considerably more powerful and better equipped Nissan 280ZX. That all changed in 1978, however, when the Porsche used the technology they created in the 911 and put a turbocharger in the 924 for the 924 Turbo. It weighed just 65 pounds more than the naturally aspirated car, but boosted the bhp figure up to 170. Motor Magazine ran it against some illustrious company in their joint test. It came second for top speed and acceleration against cars such as Porsche's own 928 and 911, the Aston Martin V8, BMW 635 CSI and Lotus Eclat. Spot 924 turbos by their NACA duct in the bonnet, and if you're really cool then refer to them by their internal model number 931, just one digit off the 911 turbo of the day. Depressingly, these cars were robbed of almost all the gains given to them by the turbo in the United States, just 143 bhp rising to 154 bhp in 1981, I'm afraid. 1980 brought us the 924 Carrera GT, which was a lightweight turbo aimed at racing. Just 400 examples with 210 bhp were produced for the road, however, as homologation specials, and in 1981 Porsche released the 924 Carrera GTS and built just 59 of them, 14 of which were race-prepared club sport versions with 245 bhp and weighing 130 pounds lighter than their GT counterparts. Quite a rapid car at that power to weight ratio. Club sport versions had even more power at 280 bhp. That wasn't the end of the fast 924s though, because Porsche gave us the GTR for racing only, which had an unbelievable 375 bhp and weighed just 2,050 pounds. Also in 1981, the 924 Carrera GTP Le Mans, which had a highly modified 2.5 litre engine, putting out a staggering 420 bhp, and which was the engine that went on to become the motor in the 944 that we'll talk about shortly. All turbo production ceased in 1982. VW decided to stop producing the 924's engine in 1984, leaving Porsche potentially without an entry-level car for their customers. The 944 was in production by then, yet the 924 was much cheaper. There were two limited edition models during the 924's life, the Martini edition in 1977 with the inevitable stripes, and the Le Mans edition in 1980 also in white with different stripes. They created the 924S, which had a retuned version of the 944's engine, putting out 148 bhp, and this continued until the 924's final year, 1988, when it was given a boost up to 156 bhp. It was actually slightly faster than the 944. Let's talk about that now. The 944 then. Porsche's moved towards refining the 924 product into something of a higher quality, higher performance, and removing the stigma of VW collaboration in a high-end product. It was introduced to the world in 1982 with the power of the car determined based on where you bought it. Depressingly, the US got the stifled cars with the power between 143 bhp for cars between 82 and 85 and 147 for cars from 85 to 87. Initial cars had the cookie cutter wheels, which were replaced by the classic teledials in 1985, with Fuchs wheels remaining an option. 1987 brought ABS to the 944 too. 1986 though brought significantly more power in the form of the 944 Turbo, pushing out 217 bhp in the US with a 0 to 60 time of just 5.9 seconds. It had the integrated front bumper, a strengthened gearbox and 16-inch wheels as standard. It also had the distinction of being the first ever car to be equipped with driver and passenger airbags as standard equipment in 1987. The following year, Porsche pushed the envelope even further with the Turbo S and gave it 247 bhp using a larger turbocharger and a different engine map. That allowed it to reach 60 in just 5.5 seconds, and it had a better handling too, with the M030 option giving it adjustable dampers front and rear. It was the fastest four-cylinder production car of its day. 1987 also saw the introduction of the 944S model to replace the standard 944. An upgraded engine gave it 187 bhp, while still having a relatively low weight of 2,857 pounds. Various improvements were also made to the car's handling and equipment. A Club Sport touring package was also available with lightweight CS Club Sport wheels. The S2 came along in 1989 with 208 bhp and sharing the integrated nose of the turbo and a 3-litre version of the S's engine, and also the convertible 944 was launched in the same year. The convertible had to have more welding than the coupe version in order to retain structural rigidity, and thus was a little heavier too. These cars didn't reach the US until 1989 and actually only lasted until 1991 before US supply stopped. 625 turbo cabriolets were made in 1991 with the 247 bhp Turbo S engine. None of these came to the US or the Americas, and it was the final year of the 944 Porsche had been developing what they called the 944 S3. But as over 80% of the 944 parts were being changed, they felt that it made better sense to change the model number and launch it as the new model, the 968. Oddly enough, however, there must have been demand for it still in the UK, because Porsche built a further 15 cars for the UK in 1992 called the Sports Equipment, or 944 SE. It had lowered suspension, a Porsche Sports exhaust and 222 bhp. These are regarded as the inspiration for the later 968 Club Sport. There were a limited number of limited edition models, including the Celebration Edition, limited to 500 cars in either silver or black with this excellent interior. The Swiss Special, limited to 200 cars, 100 in black, 100 in silver, in 1984, and the Team Rothmans Special, which was not produced by Porsche but by Son Auto of Porsche 930 Turbo S fame, so we should include those too. They made just 100 of those. 1992 and the launch of the new, well, newish 968 model, the final evolution of the Transaxle four-cylinder cars, and the car that rid itself most of the connection with the parent company, Audi VW. Unlike the 924 and the 944, this car was not made in the Audi factories at Neckarsulm, but rather in the Porsche factory itself in Zuffenhausen. This car was significantly modernised both in terms of styling and performance. Its front end resembled the 928 of the day with its pop-up headlights, and the rear featured fully coloured rear tail lamps. The standard 968 engine was a 3-litre unit pushing out 237 bhp using Porsche's new VarioCam variable valve timing. This was mated to either a new 6-speed manual transmission or Porsche's Tiptronic automatic gearbox. The chassis was virtually the same as the 944 S2, which itself was taken from the 944 Turbo due to a lack of development funds at the time. For 3 years, from 1992 to the end of the model in 1995, Porsche offered the Club Sport version of the 968, designed for customers who wanted a sportier, better handling car capable of track work. Much of the luxury was stripped from these cars in order to save weight, less sound deadening materials, crank windows instead of power units, and manually adjustable lightweight Recaro seats in the front, with the rears removed completely. It had 17-inch slightly wider wheels too. Available only in 5 colours: Grand Prix White, Black, Speed Yellow, Guards Red or Maritime Blue, which was changed to Riviera Blue for 1994. In all, they shaved £220 off the standard car, coming in at £2,910, and they built just 1,538 Club Sport cars, of which 306 cars built for the UK market were known as 968 Sport, which included a bit more luxury than the standard CS. Even rarer though is the 968 Turbo S, which is spottable by its knacker ducts on the bonnet. This had 305 bhp but otherwise shared the same body and interior as the Club Sport. Only 14 of these were made, and only for continental Europe. You can buy one today too. Here is one for sale, and it is the rarest of all because it is the factory prototype. At the time of recording, it will go under the hammer at RM Sotheby's Monterey auction and is expected to fetch somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000. You weren't expecting that for a 968, were you? The last and final 968 variant was the racing car that Porsche produced between 1992 and 1994, the 968 Turbo RS. There were two versions, one for the German ADAC GT specifications with 337 bhp and 2,976 pounds, and one for the international spec with 350 bhp and weighing just 2,672 pounds. These are, in fact, the rarest of 968s ever produced. They made 4. Poor sales by 1995 killed off the 968 and its big transaxle brother, the 928 too. A shame really, a 4-cylinder Boxster these days isn't quite the same for some reason. Perhaps it's because they gave it a flat 6 initially and then took that away from us. Anyway, that about wraps up our look at the Porsche 924, 944, 968 ranges across the years. I really hope you enjoyed it. I currently have a 15-year-old about to turn 16 who wants a 944 as his first car, so there's a healthy chance that you'll see one on this channel very soon. I hope so anyway, because I think they're great. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a like and consider subscribing if this is up your street or up your Strasse. If so, I will look forward to seeing you in the next one.